So, additionally, there's a few more people that I wanted to point out. Eugene Chen. He was one of the last people from the Asian section, China's dynamic statesman from 1870 to 1944. And he came from Negro, Chinese, Spanish parentage in Trinidad, in the British West Indies. And so he was like really active in politics, especially in China. And they go on to say that, you know, if he would have not looked as black as he did, he probably would have impacted politics in China way more. And he was like really for the people. In 1919, he was a delegate to the Versailles Conference, where he formulated China's demands in clear, unmistakable terms. He demanded, among other things, the abolition of concession territories, insisting that all such be placed under a mixed Chinese and foreign administration, with Chinese predominant. This paved the way for China's victory over the extraterritorial powers formerly held by white governments. So this guy was like super transformative in making sure that China got their independence, and he was a person of black heritage. The New York Times, in its obituary of Eugene Chen, May 21st, 1944, said, Eugene Chen, British-born Chinese publisher and politician, was 4 times foreign minister in various Chinese governments and twice a refugee when his political fortunes were at low ebb. An early member of the Kuomintang and one of the first to support Sun Yat-sen, Mr. Chen was at times a bitter enemy of the Generalissimo, and other occasions was outwardly his ally. So, you know, this guy was so impactful. There's even, in 1927, shortly before he fled to Russia, Mr. Chen wrote his name into Chinese history by attaching it to the Chen-O'Malley Agreement, which legalized the de facto situation created by the Chinese people when they rose and took back the British concession in Hankow, a 60-year holding in the center of Chinese industrial region. So this guy was all about helping China to become independent. Eugene Chen, I had never heard about him. I think he was amazing. Yeah. As regards to Eugene Chen ability, there was a high praise from those who knew him. Arthur Ransom, correspondent of the Manchester Guardian, said, I never heard a single word against his character. The only accusation made against him was that he had the misfortune of being born in Trinidad. Subtle shot to blackness, but that's okay. Of his democratic power, Ransom said, after my first meeting with him lasted 4.5 hours, I left him with the sort of feeling a man might have if he had spent that time with his head under Niagara. So, yeah, Eugene Chen was another amazing person to read about. Ibn Saud, 1880 to 1953, king of Saudi Arabia and leader of Islam. What do they say about him? Success came the hard way. When a child, he was forced to exile with his father, who was driven from the throne by his rival. At the age of 17, Ibn Saud decided to recover his father's throne and gathered the desert tribes and attacked Raida. And without money to buy any arms, he was beaten again for the next 3 years. Finally, in 1901, with only 21 followers, he's captured the city by a ruse that made the governor prisoner. Y'all, the conflicts, the drama. I mean, if this was, not everything should be a movie, but if this book was a movie and it highlighted some of these people, it should be like a Discovery Channel show. They could like go through and like pick out the people and just help explain the foundation of ancient civilization, help explain, and just use citations, because like even like with the Cleopatra movies, you know, contextually it doesn't reflect what the historians who are cited say about the way these people represented themselves. Everything always gets this dramatic happy ending, and that's just not what it was. Let me see. I'm gonna give y'all a couple more people. Yaqub al-Mansur. You gotta read the book, though. You gotta read the book. It's just like watching a movie. You only get so much. Malawi Ashmel, the extraordinary ruler of the 18th century, 1647 to 1727. It's just greatness. It's giving greatness. The ancestry of the Sultan Malawi Ashmel is so extraordinary as compared with not only that of other rulers, but of the average individual, that it upsets all current notions of aesthetics and eugenics and gives the despisers of plain and lowly women something with which to rack their brains. Okay, I'm gonna read this part to y'all just because it's so messed up. And I hope this will make somebody read the book, because I'm gonna read you just a little teaser. So again, they said it makes you despisers of plain and lowly women rack their brains. Now remember, this guy goes on to be a ruler in the 18th century. The mother of this perhaps most remarkable and dynamic ruler of the 18th century was a full-blooded Negro slave, which of course was not uncommon in Islamic lands, especially Egypt, Arabia, Algeria, Morocco, and Spain. But whereas Negro women usually were chosen for their beauty or their charm or personality, Malawi Ashmel's mother had been selected for her repulsiveness. It was in this manner that Malawi Ashmel came to be born. His father, Malawi Sharif, king of Talathalate, had been captured by Omar, king of the Seljuk, and thrown into prison. Bored by the long confinement, the captive wrote to Omar, "You might at least send me some feminine company." Omar said to his chamberlain, "Pick out the blackest and most hideous Negro slave you can find and send her to him." This was done, and of that union 2 sons were born, Rashid and Malawi Ashmel, both of whom in turn became sultans of Morocco. Can you believe that? This guy rose to greatness and literally was the product of a prisoner and bring me the most repulsive woman you could find. So this was another section about him that I highlighted. He's fighting against the European powers. He's fighting against Turkish oppressors. And so it goes on to say, as to the white Christian powers, he pushed them entirely out of Northwest Africa. He defeated the English at Tangier and Fort Charles and broke the hold of Spain in Africa. Crushing the Spaniards at La Rochelle, he drove them across the straits. Moroccan ships plundered the vessels and the coast of Spain, France, and England, bringing back tens of thousands of white Christian captives who were held for ransom from $1,000 to $15,000 each. Collections at Christian churches for the ransom of white slaves became a feature of the time. This, incidentally, was happening at the same time that Europe was raiding Africa for black slaves. Among Malawi Ashmel's slaves was Alexander Selkirk, hero of Robinson Crusoe, if you've read that book. So, if you're a history person, again, this overlaps. You get a lot of information. You get a lot of insight. So, I want to bring this to a close. There's so much in here. I mean, you could literally spend hours just pulling out the highlights of this book. But with what's going on in the world today, with so much shade being thrown at indigenous and people of color and just questioning belonging and, just rolling back of, policies and things that progressive thinkers admire in society, being well-rounded, having different influences. With all of this happening, this book, it really gave me an opportunity to feel pride about being a person of color. Because at the end of the day, Africa is the cradle of civilization, so we all come from there. But very rarely are we taught about these people. Very rarely is African history prioritized as world history. And it is just that, because this is where civilization started. So you gotta start here. And the fact that there are so many citations, again, to white historians, which by and large is the only way people accept and respect history. So, y'all, check out this book. Spend some time with it. And just see what it does for you.